This is Jerry Coleman, play-by-play voice of the Dothan High Wolves on 96.9 The Legend, and you're tuned into the Phillip Jordan Podcast.
What's up, everybody, and welcome in to the Phillip Jordan Podcast. I am your host, Phillip Jordan, in-studio host and producer of Dothan Football on 96.9 The Legend and Auburn Wire for the last word on college football. Thank you for checking out this show today. We're going to be looking back to what happened in college football over this past weekend, but we're going to be heavy into Auburn, the disappointing loss on Saturday, 24-14. Against Arkansas. We're going to break that down in just a few seconds. I am going to be joined by Taylor Jones of the Auburn Wire, and we're just going to discuss it. We're just going to let it all out there, what happened with the Auburn Tigers. And there's some college football stuff that happened on Monday. We'll talk about some kind of national stuff. And to kind of moving forward the rest of the season, Tuesday and Thursdays, we'll be talking college football here on the Phillip Jordan Podcast. Fridays will be something different. We may do an NFL show on those days, so I'll probably talk about Thursday night game, have a guest on that covers a team in the NFL, and then we'll probably I'll just run through my picks real quick. We'll try to keep these pods 30 to 40 minutes on these days we're doing that, but that's kind of what I'm thinking just do is kind of keep everything separate. Tuesday, Thursdays is college football. Fridays we'll do NFL, and we got other stuff to mix in here and there. We'll do that as well too on the show. Before we bring on Taylor Jones, let you guys know you can find me in the podcast. Find me on social media at PJordanSEC. The podcast is available Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please follow, rate, and review. Leave a review, and I will read it on a future edition of the show. And if you leave just 4 stars, you're just a straight-up hater. You can also check out the show over at the Phillip Jordan Sports YouTube channel. Wiregrass Daily News, also on the Facebook. The video will be up on their Facebook page as well. You can always email me at sports.philipjordan@gmail.com. Now, let's bring on Taylor Jones from the Auburn Wire, and let's discuss the Auburn Tigers. All right, as promised, we're joined now by Taylor Jones, Auburn Wire managing editor. Check him out doing high school football coverage too, play-by-play, hometown sports media. And Taylor, I appreciate you coming on. I was kind of hoping when I asked you on the pod last week that we would be talking about Auburn being 3-1, beating Arkansas 1-0 in conference play. But they are 2-2 and 2 losses now on the season. And so plenty to discuss when it comes to Auburn Tigers football, as is usually the case.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that Auburn couldn't get the job done, but hopefully we'll see a lot of improvement as far as coaching goes and getting the right people in where they need to be and the right play call. And I think the other thing too is the actual game is not practice. And I think that's been discussed a lot too. That we've had a great week of practice, but game time doesn't really translate. So maybe that was a wake-up call on Saturday, and we'll see what happens over these next several games.
Yeah, absolutely. The 24-14 loss to Arkansas, and just the way it kind of started for Auburn. And it's kind of just been, I think the 2 losses, I look at it as common themes have been turnovers and getting off the field on third down. Remember what happened with Cal, especially in the first half. And actually we saw this against New Mexico some too. Like a 3rd and 19, and then Auburn just can't get off the field. There's a penalty. They have a big play. You saw that with a touchdown against Arkansas. And, of course, Hugh Freeze on Monday talked about it during his press conference, 3rd down and turnovers. And, of course, in his comments, he feels like they're moving the ball. Just you're turning the ball over in half your possessions. It's not going to work out. What are you seeing with some of the big issues with Auburn right now?
Yeah, it just seems like – and then, kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, when we don't really know exactly what happens with practice. Some of the media gets to go to a little bit, but for the most part, you really don't get to see the bread and butter of how the preparation goes. But, you hear all the time, Payton Thorne looked great in practice. I think he's good enough to play. And then he gets out there, and I don't know if they're just not on the same page or if it's nerves or what it could be. But, there's just not executing the way that they should. And then, of course, Hank Brown goes out there and he does look great in the Music City Bowl after, the blowout's already taken place. And then he comes in and, does pretty well against New Mexico. But, you take on the SEC, it's a brand new game. He's learned that. So I think, it just seems like it all starts with quarterback. You've got to find someone that's confident, someone that can get it done. And for whatever reason, it's just not happening right now. Hugh Freeze said earlier today that he's going to go back to the drawing board. I think it's going to be a battle this week, I think was the exact quote. Not exactly sure what he's looking for. Not exactly sure if he's going to do, the interview like he did a couple weeks ago when he decided to make Hank Brown the quarterback. Is he going to show film and, kind of get their feedback on it, or what the deal is? Or, hey, it may be, Holden Gerner, could be waiting. Walker White could get a shot. Not really sure what's going to happen there, but I just think, if you don't have a grounded quarterback, regardless of what the situation may be, then the entire offense is going to suffer. And I think that's what we're seeing right now. Not really sure, who to blame that on, or if you can blame it on anyone. But quarterback play is definitely the biggest area of concern right now. I think if you have a confident quarterback, everyone else will be confident as well.
A big issue I've had with watching Auburn offensively this first 4 weeks, and they did it in the 2 blowout wins against A&M and against New Mexico. But the 2 losses, what sticks out to me, consistently staying with the run game, because the average yards per carry is there. And when they do run the ball, especially with Jarquez Hunter, there's success there. I know with Damari Alston on Saturday, he fumbled right before he was going into the end zone. But still, he has big playability. We've seen what Jeremiah Cobb can do as well. So I just don't feel like the play calling, I'm not questioning who's calling the plays and the play calling as a whole. I just feel like there needs to be more of an emphasis on the run game, because if your quarterbacks aren't great, you need to rely on that. You need to let that run game set up what you want to do passing. But sometimes I feel like Hugh Freeze wants to just throw the ball around. That's what he did at Ole Miss. I mean, they didn't really have a great run game when he was there. I don't know. Are you seeing that too? Like, not a consistent effort to get the run game going.
Yeah, I wonder if he's trying to spend more emphasis on his quarterbacks, trying to get them prepared to do what Bo Wallace did, to do what Swag Kelly did back at Ole Miss, and what Willis did for him at Liberty too. That's I don't really know if it's Jarquez is being ignored or whatever, but it's definitely something, a great weapon to have on offense. And it, really concerns me a little bit too, that we're not seeing a little bit more than that. I was, doing some research earlier today, just kind of comparing Auburn and Oklahoma and seeing if there was, 1 or 2 things that Auburn had the advantage on. And I looked, and it was the 3rd straight game that Jarquez Hunter missed going over 100 yards. And it wasn't just, he got 70 to 75 yards, he got 85 yards. Like, he wasn't even close for like the 3rd straight week. And then you mentioned Damari Alston. I'm sure, his leash was incredibly short after he fumbled. That was one of the gripes that Hugh Freeze had after the game in his press conference. Jeremiah Cobb, I feel like, hasn't gotten the carries that he should too. But that's definitely a concern for me. I feel like you definitely have to run the ball in this league to win. I know that's not the common thing to do anymore, but this is still the SEC, and you've got to find a way to win the trenches, and your offensive line has got to do a great job of opening the holes for your running backs to do so. But also, you got to give your guys some opportunities as well, especially with the interceptions that have been thrown. The mistakes that have been made, you kind of have to be a little conservative a little bit to try to open the game up. And, Hugh Freeze is trying to do too much right now with his quarterbacks. And I think that's causing some confidence issues. And I think it may be time against Oklahoma to try to run the ball a little bit more. They're a lot like Arkansas was in stopping the run. I think they allow just under 100 yards rushing, so that's definitely what they do best. But I feel like if you at least give yourself some more opportunity, because you've got a guy that could lead the SEC in rushing if you give him the opportunities, but you just got to use him. And that may help your confidence in quarterbacks too, because that may can give them a little break, a little bit more time to think, and just hand the ball off to Jarquez. We'll get this thing going. But yeah, it is kind of a shock to me, a little bit of a disappointment too, that we haven't seen more of Jarquez Hunter, because I felt that this was definitely going to be the year that he was going to get over 1,000 yards. I predicted about 1,250 for him this year, but he's just hasn't gotten the carries yet. And you kind of wonder what would happen if, he has more carries, if Damari Alston has more carries, what this Auburn offense would be.
Yeah, looking at the stats, he has rushed the ball 48 times through the first 4 games for 340 yards, and he's averaging 7 yards a carry. So he's almost getting a first down every time he touches the ball. So get him more involved. And, talking about the quarterbacks, of course, Hank Brown, as you mentioned, played really well against New Mexico, 4 touchdown passes of 17-25. And then the first few throws, he was okay. The offense was running, and he throws the interception. I feel like he forced the ball, and then we saw it happen toward the end of the half, and then he gets pulled for Payton Thorne. Now, was I surprised by this? No, but do you think Hank Brown should have been allowed to play at least a series or 2 into the second half, see if he was calmed down, or do you think it was the right move to go to Payton Thorne?
I think it was the right move to go to Payton Thorne, because you could clearly see that Hank Brown was scared to death. And,
Yes.
you talk to Hugh Freeze, and I mean, we've even seen it too. He's been a quarterback, even his days at Michigan State for, 2-3 years. Payton has the experience. He has the ability to, make a lot of great throws. He has a lot of great targets to throw to as well. Now, regardless if, Cam Coleman was completely healthy or not, I'm not sure, but he relied on Keandre Lambert-Smith quite a bit. And that, helped Auburn stay in the game. I think, they didn't score as much as they probably should have, but the 2 times they did score, it was the combination of him and Keandre Lambert-Smith. So I think you needed someone in that spot to just, kind of lead, kind of control the game. And I think doing that, he honestly should have done it a little earlier. I know he threw those 2 interceptions like within 10 seconds of each other, because I think it was a Brown interception, then a couple plays later, Arkansas threw an interception, and then the very next play, he threw another interception. So I think that was within like a 20-minute frame. So I know it's, hard for him to, say that getting pulled with even a minute and a half left to go in the first half. But knowing what we knew then, you kind of think that there had to be some sense of urgency before then with Hugh Freeze. But I do applaud his effort for trying to, give himself, give Hank Brown the chance to prove himself. He mentioned that in the post-game press conference too, that he's not going to, shun Hank Brown. He's not going to kick him off the team, or he's not going to let him get a shot again at playing. But I do think that the nerves finally got to him, and he probably should have, done something about it a little earlier. Now, I think it was the right move to, pull him for Payton Thorne, just because of the experience. But at the end of the day, it just wasn't, I felt like there was so much more going on that even if he did come in, I don't think you win that game. But the move I thought was great in that spot, just to give a guy with experience a shot to at least give you a win.
Yeah, such backup, Payton Thorne. This is the second time it's happened where he's found Cam Coleman over the middle, and Cam Coleman can't come up with the catch, and it results into an interception. Even Hugh Freeze talked about it. It was a catchable ball. It was. He hit his hands. He probably should have caught that, but again, you don't know how healthy. How's that shoulder doing with Cam Coleman? And yeah, it's just, and I was kind of surprised too with Payton Thorne. Okay, he comes in. Okay, they should focus more on the running game, because he is more of the runner versus what Hank Brown is. I know they tried some read plays with Hank Brown, but obviously Payton Thorne, Taylor, I had no idea Payton Thorne was a runner when he was at Michigan State.
Same.
Well, I think it was last year when he had his breakout against Georgia, when he had the big touchdown run. I thought, whoa, I did not notice what this guy was capable of doing, but I was kind of surprised I didn't go with more of that. But it still felt like those last couple toward the end of the game, kind of Payton Thorne kind of fell into some of the traps he falls into, taking sacks, stuff like that. But so let's talk before we jump to the defense. Of course, what everybody's talking about, we saw former Ole Miss quarterback, former Hugh Freeze quarterback, Bo Wallace had his comments on the weekend, which a lot of people did not listen to all of Hugh Freeze's post-game press conference, but the comments about Hugh Freeze, what he said about the quarterbacks. Do you think that was right or wrong? Kind of, as some people will say, throwing them under the bus, and he did so with the running backs too. To mention them, they need to hang on to the ball, and we need to find quarterbacks who don't throw it to the other team.
Yeah, I think I mean, you are right. There was a lot more that he said about, we have to coach him better. I think he even threw his assistant coaches under the bus too. I think one of the quotes was, "We're not doing very good at coaching quarterbacks," or "We're not coaching quarterbacks very well," or whatever. So, he throws Derek Nix and, his right-hand man, Ken Austin, under the bus too by saying that. But, it reminds me a lot of, what Harsin did back in the day, because that was, things that he would do too. And I mean, even now, that's not, he doesn't like to take accountability. He went on Twitter earlier this week and, was like, "Oh, I didn't do anything wrong at Auburn. Here's to winners. Good morning to winners." But yeah, I just think, I don't know. It just kind of, screams a lack of accountability from Hugh Freeze. Now, I know that he did, ultimately, say he's got to get better. But at the same time, I honestly don't think that he's still been in this spot at this point in year two, no matter where he's been. Because, the first year at Ole Miss didn't do well, but by year two, things were starting to pick up. And I honestly don't even know if he had a bad year at Liberty or a year that, he showed struggle at Liberty. But now, you're year two in Auburn and things are still pretty much the way they were when you first got here. You have a couple more talented players on the field, but other than that, there's still mistakes that are being made. There's still things that are happening beyond your control that just aren't, going the way you want to. But as a head coach and as a leader, if you want someone to play with you or play for you, I feel like that's, something that you handle outside of the media. If you really, want to get on them, or if you want to say, "Hey, you've got to do better," don't throw your guys under the bus, because not only is that affecting your current players, but, all that great big recruiting class that you had come in, and the one that you're going to have in 25 and what looks like going to be a pretty good one in 26 too. They're all looking at that as well. So I think that's something that, while he is saying exactly what every Auburn fan is thinking, and, I've been guilty of this as an Auburn fan too, but that's one of the big things about Auburn fans that I've learned in the years of being an Auburn fan and, doing media in Auburn fans, is that Auburn fans can say things, but you better not say things about Auburn. So I'm sure there was a million people watching their TVs thinking the same thing. "Oh, we need a quarterback that can throw. Oh, we need a running back that can hold on to the ball." But when Hugh Freeze says it, it's like, "Hey, wait a minute. That's not that. That's, you can't say that about our guys." So I can kind of see it from the Auburn fan side, and I can also see it from the Hugh Freeze side too. But, it's just one of those things. It's like, if you want guys on your side, especially in this moment, you got to let them know that, hey, I'm in the trenches with you. And if there is some things that you need to criticize me for, then by all means do it when there's no cameras around. Don't go out and, talk to the media about, how bad things are, and don't mention me. So I think, earlier this week in his press conference, we saw a little bit more growth from Hugh Freeze in that department, because he still talked about the issues, but he talked about it more in a way of, here's what we're going to do this week. I have no idea what, who the starting quarterback is going to be, but this is what here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're looking for. And I think that's, ultimately going to help Freeze as far as get his team to play for him later in the road. That's ultimately going to help him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I guess, we can kind of close up that part of the conversation too, kind of looking back at it. I'm sure Hugh Freeze believed that, okay, Payton Thorne will be better if I put talent around him. And obviously they did a good job. But now I'll just kind of wonder, is him and the people around the Auburn program think, okay, we made a mistake by not going after a quarterback in the transfer portal?
That's another tough one there too, because that was a conversation that, me and several others had, that, you had the you had several pretty good options. I thought you had Cam Ward from Washington State, who ended up going to Miami. You've got Fairhope legend Riley Leonard going from Duke to Notre Dame, and there were several others that I felt probably would have been a good fit for Auburn, but it just didn't work out. And I know at the time I know exactly what it was. It was, you look back at what he did in 2021 and 2022 at Michigan State. and he had, a couple of receivers to work with, and Cam Coleman later in the year, or not Cam Coleman, but Keon Coleman had him, later in his Michigan State career too, before Keon went on to Florida State and he went to Michigan State. So, it was proven that if you get some pretty talented receivers around him, that chances are he will succeed. And for the most part, when you look at, what he did with Dre Lambert on Saturday, that's a big play guy. You look at what he did with Cam Coleman a couple weeks ago, that's, pretty solid too. Robert Lewis has made some big plays as well. Rivaldo Fairweather, even though his stats aren't as, prominent as they were last year because he was a tight end, and you shouldn't expect the tight end to be the leading receiver, but he's, made some pretty big plays too. Malcolm Simmons, that's a guy I wish that they would get the ball to more, is Malcolm Simmons. Last, few games that we've seen, he's done pretty well too. So I get the logic of thinking that Thorne can, do better with playmakers, but at the same time, you have to worry about, developing him as a quarterback too, because it's like, you got to know what to do with it. Once you have good receivers, and that could be, a life lesson for anybody, is that, you give someone $1 million, and are they going to be careful with it? Are they going to spend things the way that they need to, or are they going to blow it? It's just, you've got to teach him what to do with those receivers, because last season, that's not what he had. And, just got to find ways to continue to develop him. But, hindsight being 2020, you think of especially those two guys that I mentioned, Riley Leonard and Cam Ward. And I know at least both of them, they were in contact with both of them. I don't know how close they got to, signing the deal or anything like that. But, I think it probably would have helped. I mean, even if you don't get those guys, if you get something like not Casey Thompson per se, but someone like that to be an extra mentor for Walker White, who's going to lead the offense in a couple of years too. I feel like he probably should have done that, but at the same time, I understand why he felt confident in Payton Thorne because of his past success at Michigan State.
And the defense, how they played so far, I think they've been inconsistent. I think that they've been good I think they've been really good at times. First half against Cal in New Mexico. I mean, that New Mexico game, there was a lot of times I think the secondary got caught peeking into the backfield, and there was some busted coverage. I think Saturday against Arkansas, I think the defense played well mostly, but there was a couple third and longs, which we saw that against New Mexico, and we've seen against Cal, where they just can't. Sometimes they just cannot get off the field when they need to. And of course, on Saturday, Auburn makes it 17-14. That's the whole thing there. As bad as they played offensively, they still had an opportunity to win that game, but they couldn't get a stop. Arkansas goes on a 6-minute drive, gets a touchdown. The game was pretty much over when they go up 24-14. What's been your grade on this defense?
I would give him a C+ because, like you said, it seems like one unit is on and the other two aren't. And that was what we saw on Saturday. I had a big gripe with the secondary because of the amount of passing yards that Auburn has given up. So that's, of course, been a thing, which that was kind of expected when you have 3 of your 4 starters go to the NFL. You knew that, experience was going to be a little lacking. Kayan Lee was probably going to step up, get a few more looks. Keontae Scott was the more experienced guy that had been around the program for a while. Jaron Thompson needed to break in after being at Texas. And, so you kind of felt like that was going to happen. But the biggest disappointment to me so far has been linebacker play and Eugene Asante. That was, something that, me and my Auburn Wire team had talked about too, of, what's the biggest disappointment of the Auburn, just the team as a whole right now. And he said, like, where's Eugene Asante been? Like, Eugene Asante was the leading tackler last year. You expected him to kind of be this senior leader, and he just really hasn't been there. And he didn't have a lot of tackles in the stat sheet on Saturday, but he did have 4 quarterback hurries, so he was at least getting into the backfield. Dorian Mauzi had a great game. Jalen McLeod had a great game. So, you look at what the defensive backs did, especially Jaron Thompson, took a cleat to the face from Taylon Green, but still got up and had a great game. And, Champ Anthony, want to send thoughts and prayers to him. He had a great game before he went out. I think he had a couple of pass breakups
Ooh, that hit
and
he had
made
on
that big
the
hit.
that was I mean, I know there's people I can't imagine what it sounded like. People that were there at Jordan Hare, but the way that thing even sounded on TV, and when they showed the replay, I mean, clean hit, great hit, but whew, that was a lick to say the least.
Yeah, that was probably the cleanest hit. I mean, it's kind of a shame that we've gotten to this point in college football where when we see a hit like that, we automatically think, "Oh, that's targeting. He's going to be ejected." But no, that was about as clean of a hit as you could make right there. And props to him. But unfortunately, he went out a couple plays later. But he had a pretty good game. He was pretty active. So got to give props to it. So the linebackers played pretty decent. You had the defensive secondary that played pretty well. They limited Arkansas to 150 yards passing, which is pretty hard to do considering they were coming in throwing about, 100, 120 more yards per game. But, Keldrick Faulk, didn't really play much of a role into it. I think he may have had a stop or two in the first quarter, but you didn't hear much from him. Bleedy, Gage Keys, those are guys that you didn't really hear much about. So, if all three units can get going at the same time, which Oklahoma would be a great time to do that because their offense is not as good as Oklahoma's offenses usually are. If all three of those units get together, I mean, this defense is going to be pretty much unstoppable just because of all the talent and what they can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And then whoever, if we do see McPherson at some point, you still got Towns Magoo kicking field goals. So
That's right.
Auburn is usually, whatever coaching staff is there, is usually pretty good at recruiting kickers. That's one thing. That's a lock. So Oklahoma game for this Saturday, 2:30 ABC. And look, they're having their own quarterback issues over there. They benched Jackson Arnold, and going into the Tennessee game, I didn't really think they had much of a shot just because they can't run the ball. I mean, Jackson Arnold going into that game was their leading rusher, and I mean, he was not good against Tennessee. He was 7-16 for 54 yards and one interception. They went with Michael Hawkins in the game. Now he played better toward the end of 11-18, 132 yards and a touchdown. And he obviously has more of the running ability than Jackson Arnold. Their defense is great. Hugh Freeze talked about that on Monday, that this team does not give up big plays. So it's going to be very important to take care of the football on Saturday. Just not necessarily, you don't have to give a prediction, but just what's going to be some keys for Auburn to come out with a victory against Oklahoma?
Yeah, they're going to have to find ways to just play good up front, especially because the three guys that I'm looking at so far, I've lost their names right now, but they're two defensive linemen. I think they total about 6.5 sacks, I think, for a loss of like 40 yards. So, two defensive linemen that I'm looking at. And then, of course, there's a safety that's really good, too. He's, one of those that can sack a quarterback, too. If, the play's not going to his side, he can, rush up and make plays, too. Defense has got to be it needs to be a breakout game for them because, as we mentioned, when we think of Oklahoma, we think of, the Mike Leach offense. We think of, so many, great quarterbacks throwing the ball. Kyler Murray, running the ball as well as an Oklahoma quarterback, and Dylan Gabriel not all that long ago, but they rank 16th in the SEC right now. And I think they average somewhere between 30 and 40 yards less than the next team. And it's just they can't get it going on either side of the ball. So the defense, great opportunity for them to come in and get a win. So they need to be up. Great time for all three of those units to step up and have a great game. And, I don't know what the quarterback battle is going to bring, but whoever it is, we need to know that that's the guy. We don't need to be, freaking out in the second quarter, being like, oh, well, this guy's not it. We got to figure out another game plan. We've got to pick a guy, stick with him, make sure he's ready, and win the battle up front. Because if we block out those two defensive linemen and defensively holds them, I think everything should go well for Auburn. But they've got to, find a quarterback also, be confident with him, and we'll see what happens.
Okay, that's where I'm going to ask your prediction, not the score. Who starts at quarterback for Auburn on Saturday?
Who starts at quarterback? I feel like you've got to go with Payton Thorne in this one, just from the experience standpoint. I feel like you have to go with him. Hank Brown, I just don't think he's ready yet. I know he's, does a lot of good things. He's the passing style quarterback that Hugh Freeze wants, but he's not ready yet. And I don't know if Payton Thorne's ready, also, but you got to have to like the experience that he has. And, maybe this is a game where he can play cool, calm, and collected, and he'll go out there and get the job done. But I expect to see number one out there take the first snap for the Tigers.
All right. So we've gone almost 30 minutes. Are you cool with, real quickly, some rapid fire SEC picks?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. So, of course, all right. So 11 a.m. Oh, look at Ole Miss actually playing somebody that's a decent team. Well, I don't know if Kentucky's decent, but anyway, Kentucky at Ole Miss. That's an 11 o'clock game on ABC.
Yeah, I like Ole Miss in that one. I just feel like their offense is way too much for the Kentucky defense, and I feel like if the game were in Lexington, it may not be as bad, but I do see Ole Miss probably winning that one by 3 scores.
Yeah, it seems like an 11 a.m. game at Lexington can make you very sleepy. I don't know why that is. And the Kentucky people, I apologize. All right, we did the Oklahoma-Auburn game. Okay, at 2:30 on ESPN, you'll have Arkansas playing Texas A&M. Both games are 3-1.
I feel like the Aggies will get the win in that one. Playing in front of Texas and or playing in Arlington, in front of what should be a pretty Texas A&M heavy crowd. Could be a hangover game for Arkansas. I don't see Texas A&M winning by a whole lot, but especially if Arkansas still has as many injuries as they had last Saturday too. A couple of their key defensive guys, I don't think are going to be able to keep up if they don't have them. So yeah, I'll take A&M by 10.
All right. Then at 3:15 on the SEC Network, you'll have 1-3 Mississippi State. Looks like they'll be without their quarterback, Blake Shapen. Takes on Arch Manning and the number 1 Texas Longhorns. This is Texas. This is their SEC opener.
That game's in Austin, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, give me the Longhorns by 35. Not much you need to say outside of that. I haven't done too much research to see how much success Jeff Lebby had against Texas in his time at Oklahoma, but I don't see Texas losing that game by more than 35 or winning that game by more than 35.
Yeah, I actually agree with you on that one. We'll skip the main one. We'll save that one last. South Alabama, who they put it on Appalachian State last week. I was shocked by that one. I thought App State was the favorite in the Sun Belt, but South Alabama may have different opinions. They'll be playing LSU, and of course, on Monday, the news that Harold Perkins is out for the rest of the year.
I like LSU in that one, but not by as much as a lot of people are thinking. I like South Alabama. They put 80 points on Northwestern State the week before that, and they had their way with Appalachian State at Boone. It was a night game and it was raining, and the students were having fun on the hill, sliding down. Even Harry Lyles Jr. he did that too. It was a raucous environment, and that didn't really mean anything to him or really mean anything to South Alabama. But they, are also known for going on the road and winning big games. Last year, I think they beat Oklahoma State by 30, I think 33-7. Mm-hmm. I think it was. So they're not shy of, going to big places and playing well. I think LSU wins that game by 10, but expect South Alabama to, put the fear in LSU going forward.
Yeah, South Alabama played well, but we know recent history. They do not play well against Detroit Trojans. Had to get that one in there. Finally, number 2 Georgia at number 4 Alabama, 6:30 on ABC. I just feel like Kirby Smart is looking for a little bit of payback from the SEC championship game and his crew. But what do you think about that one?
I like Georgia winning that game by 7, and the only reason I like that is because Kirby Smart has proven that he can win big games like that, and we still don't know a lot about Kalen DeBoer. He's got the guys that can make it happen. He's going to be in Tuscaloosa. It's going to be a night game, going to be absolutely wild, but I like the advantage that Kirby Smart has as far as getting his team ready and actually winning in environments like that in games of that magnitude. So give me Georgia by 3. I'll do it by 3.
Okay, good deal. What is going to happen? People watch this or hear this. They're going to say, well, this is just 2 Auburn riders picking on Alabama. This is all it's going to be. But anyways, so it's gonna be a fun weekend. Let's see what Auburn does against Oklahoma. It's gonna be fun seeing Oklahoma come to Jordan-Hare, I believe for the first time ever.
Yeah, I think it's the first time that these two teams have played outside of a bowl setting, so it should be fun.
Isn't the last time they played in a bowl game? Isn't that the game where Sean White like broke his arm like in the first quarter?
Yeah, he did, and Baker Mayfield threw the ball like crazy, and it was they had the 1-2 combo of Joe Mixon and Samaje Perine in the backfield too, and they had some fun against that Auburn defense too. So three pretty solid NFL players that Auburn had to defend that night, and it didn't go well, sadly.
I'll close this and I'll let you promote all your stuff. Sean White never got to start against Alabama. I remember all them times he was playing well for Auburn, he would always get hurt. It seemed like right before the Georgia game or something along that lines, and then Auburn had to go with Jeremy Johnson, I think, twice, where Sean White would have played. So
I never thought about that, but yeah, that's true. He never got healthy, never could.
Nope. But anyways, it's be fun this weekend with that matchup with Auburn and Oklahoma. If the listeners, viewers want to follow you online, where can they find you, Taylor?
You can check us out online at auburnwire.usatoday.com. You can also check us out on social media on Facebook. Just search Auburn Wire, on Twitter or X, however they want to call it. It's at the Auburn Wire. And at all three of those places, we're going to have a lot of game day coverage or game week coverage of Auburn and Oklahoma. We've got press conference reviews already up there. We've worked on 5 things to know about Oklahoma. So 5 things you need to know about what's going on in Oklahoma and kind of their history with Auburn. Later this week, we're going to have Behind Enemy Lines with John Williams of Sooners Wire. And if you want to know about, what Oklahoma is thinking of Auburn from the Oklahoma perspective, or if you want a little bit more info on what's happening with that quarterback battle, or if there even is a quarterback battle at Oklahoma anymore, be sure to look out for that. We'll have, roundtable expert picks. We're going to have a couple of features on Oklahoma too, just kind of paying attention to, what they're saying in the media this week, and just giving Auburn fans the best look at Auburn and Oklahoma this week leading up to the game. And then, of course, we'll have game day coverage. We'll have betting coverage, how to watch the game. Once the game's over, we'll release our thoughts and have photo galleries and all kinds of great stuff. So be sure to check it out at auburnwire.usatoday.com, and, of course, all of the major social media platforms.
All right, everybody, go check it out. Follow all things Auburn and go follow Taylor Jones. And Taylor, I appreciate the time, and I look forward to when we do this again.
Yeah, hopefully we can talk about a few more wins later on this season.
Absolutely.
.96.9 The Legend is your connection to classic country legends. But Digio Strategies has other options too. News Talk 103.9 is your source for America's top news and entertainment shows, like Rick and Bubba in the morning, Glenn Beck from 9 till 11 a.m., and Clay Travis and Buck Sexton middays from 11 a.m. till 2 p.m. Sean Hannity, Lars Larson, Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, and others fill your day with the latest news and views from America's top conservative voices. America at Night and Coast to Coast AM keep you company and connected throughout the night. Plus, Fox News, the Alabama Radio Network, and Wiregrass Daily News keep you informed with national, international, state, and local news. And with more musical choices like All the Hits 106.7 KMX, Today's Country 95.5 WTVY, and Music 107.7. Digio Strategies gives you more choices and more variety. Listen on air, online, and on our apps. 96.9 The Legend is just the beginning.
All right. And once again, thanks to Taylor Jones for coming on this edition of the podcast. A lot of interesting stuff for Auburn. I cover Auburn for from college football. Obviously, he is the managing editor for the Auburn Wire. So a lot of Auburn talk there, obviously, between the two of us, just kind of figuring out, talking about what's going on with Auburn. So a lot of fun there. Later on in the week, I'll have Palmer Tom scheduled to be joined by him. We're going to look at Alabama Georgia games. So, if you're not an Auburn fan, hey, we'll have the other teams covered. Real quick, in that conversation, I told Open Show we go 30, 40 minutes. We're at 40 minutes right now with the recording. But just looking at real quickly some things that happened, really the SEC and some Troy and Florida State stuff on the weekend. Florida getting a win, 45-28 over Mississippi State to get to 2-2. The heat has not come off Billy Napier at all. Florida still had some defensive issues in this game. They got up 28-7. Mississippi State came back, made it 28-21. Had a fumble there on the goal line when they had an opportunity to tie the game. Then it does later on becomes 35-21. The quarterbacks for Florida was great, both of them. Graham Mertz, 19-21, 201 yards, 3 touchdowns, and DJ Lagway was 7-7 for 76 yards. So both quarterbacks were great, combined 26-28 for 277. Bad news, Mississippi State in this game. Their quarterback, Blake Shapen, he is out for the year with a shoulder injury. For LSU, good performance, win 34-17 against UCLA of the Big Ten. This game was tied up at 17 at halftime. The LSU defense, well, they gave up some big plays in this game, but they also got after the quarterback and got 5 sacks in the game, put a lot of pressure on the backfield of UCLA. Garrett Nussmeier, big game for him, 32-44, 352, 3 touchdowns. Just get used to seeing that throughout the year. The bad thing, though, for LSU is this. They will be without Harold Perkins the rest of the year, torn Achilles, according to reports coming out of that. So that's the bad side of things for LSU. Missouri defeated Vanderbilt 30-27 in double overtime. I'm not even going to talk about Missouri here, not because they didn't play great, didn't do good things, but I'm just saying, I just look at this game from the Vanderbilt standpoint. They had chances to win. Field goals missed at the end of the game, into regulation. Overtime, they had opportunities to extend this game. But it's just amazing how much better Vanderbilt is because they have a really good quarterback. Auburn could have went and got this guy. This is a guy Auburn maybe could have looked at and went. Obviously, they know about him because they beat him with New Mexico State last year. Diego Pavia was 14-23, 178, 2 passing touchdowns. He rushed for 84 yards. He just gives Vanderbilt a chance in most of these games. And Vanderbilt's going to be a tough out for pretty much anybody this season. Tennessee dominated Oklahoma. Don't let the score fool you, 25-15. As we talked about this a little bit there with Taylor with the quarterback situation going to Oklahoma. Tennessee's front was great. They allowed just 36 yards rushing. Oklahoma struggling with that, but still Tennessee dominated the game up front, and that's the difference between this Tennessee and the Tennessee team we saw a couple years ago, Hendon Hooker, where it was mostly the offense. Defense wasn't really that great. The defense was pretty solid last year for Tennessee, and they're even better this year. So that's why this team is dangerous. Tennessee is a contender this year, without a doubt. You know, we all talked about going into the season, okay, we felt like it's Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Ole Miss, your top 4 teams. And then who's that 5th team? A lot of people Missouri, a lot of people LSU. I'll tell you what, if Tennessee lines up against Missouri and LSU right now, they're beating both of those teams. And right now, I'm not too sure Ole Miss would beat them. And they would give those other 3 big games with Georgia, Texas, and Alabama. So Tennessee is a dangerous team. Jumping over, this is the local segment of the show, I guess you would say. Troy beating Florida A&M 34-12 to get to 1-3. First win for head coach Jared Parker. Just get Devontae Ross the ball if you're Troy. 11 catches, 229 yards, and 3 touchdowns in the game. Second straight game with 3 touchdowns against Iowa. He had 2 long touchdown catches and a punt return. So when he gets the ball in his hands, good things are happening for the Troy Trojans. And their running back, Damian Taylor, had a good game too as well. 109 yards on the ground and a touchdown. Florida State gets a win 14-9 over Cal. Offense look great, but they get the win. There does Florida State. So if Cal could hit 2 more field goals, they would have won that one. The kicker missed 2 field goals in the game. That's going to do it for this edition of Phillip Jordan Podcast. As I told you, later on in the week, we'll be joined by Palmer Toms from On 3. He covers the Georgia Bulldogs. We will talk about the game coming up with them in Alabama. Should be fun. I'm supposed to talk to somebody Thursday about the New Orleans Saints. I was going to drop a NFL-focused pod later on in the week, too, as well. We got the storm coming. I don't know what that situation is going to be, if I will have power and be where I can record it. We may have to figure some stuff out. So as of right now, that's the plan. But with the storm like it is, there may be a chance that doesn't happen. We'll just have to keep our fingers crossed and hope. Remember, you can follow me on social media at PJordanSEC. The podcast available on all your favorite podcast platforms. Wiregrass Daily News. Check it out. all the interviews over on my YouTube channel, Phillip Jordan Sports. And that's it. That's going to do it for this edition of the show. All college football here, all college football on Thursday. And if we do a show on Friday, NFL heavy. But anyways, appreciate you taking the time to check out the show. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.